Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a professional chiropractor connection out in Colorado with Dr. Petra Sullwold. Dr. Petra, can you get us started by just introducing yourself, sharing a little bit about who you are, what you've been up to, maybe what you're up to in present moment, and then also reflecting back on that moment in life when you decided you wanted to become a chiropractor, where you were, what that pivot point was like, what attracted you to this path?
Wow, yes. Do we have 2 hours? Just kidding. All right, so my name is Dr. Petra Sullwold. I was born and raised in Austria, and I went to Life West in California, and I knew that the reason why I went to chiropractic school was solely to adjust horses. I never thought I would touch a human because I saw the amazing effects that chiropractic had on my own horse. And I was 32 at the time. I was struggling. I wanted to find something more inspiring in my life. I wanted to do something with animals. I saw a chiropractor adjust my horse. It blew my mind. 2 weeks later, I was enrolled at Life West, and that's where I met the amazing Dr. J. That's where I met my now husband. And it's put me on this incredible journey of really, diving deep into animal chiropractic. My initial plan was to go back to Austria because I wanted to change the laws there, because chiropractic is not really, it's not illegal, but it's not legal. It's not really recognized as a profession as per se. So, but that didn't happen. I got stuck in Colorado, not a bad thing. So, but I've definitely put some of my political endeavors into Colorado. We changed, as you probably know, we changed the law that animals in Colorado have direct access to animal chiropractic, which is very exciting. And I'm practicing mostly with horses. And we also started a continuing education school for animal chiropractors because we saw the need, especially, Dr. J and I, we just became really, really good friends. We practiced together several times. And we saw the need that, it's the same as in chiropractic school where people, go through the motion, you go through the motion of adjusting, but you're not really that great a lot of times when you graduate unless you've taken a lot of outside classes. And we realized that similar things were happening where animal chiropractors went through the program, but were really fearful of, adjusting properly, or didn't have a flow, didn't connect with the animals. You get ready for the test where you basically are just posing, making sure you pass the tests. And so that's our latest and greatest venture. And it's been absolutely incredible. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that a little bit later in this conversation. For now, I would love for you to maybe reflect on your time growing up in Austria and what pre-primed you to really be open to the universe sending you this message that, hey, maybe you need to go become a chiropractor. Obviously, you already had a fascination with horses. Can you talk about where that started, what the origin story was for you to really start to gain a connection and a relationship and a familiarity with animals, just so that you can kind of help us get context for where you were at in life and why this message, you were able to hear it so loud and clear.
Oh, that's a great question. I think I lately came out of the womb questioning pretty much everything. And I remember, my mom would sometimes try to give me some sort of medication. And, besides as a child, the reason why a lot of children don't like medication is because they know it's actually not that great for them. And I felt very strongly about that in every way, even when she tried to give me the birth control pill. I knew this is not right. I don't want to take any of this. So I think I had a strong innate insight that there were other alternatives and that some of these chemically composed compounds weren't healthy for me. And I always felt drawn to a more natural way of life. And horses, my dad bought me my first horse when I was 5. So I had always a very, very strong connection with horses. And I was actually signed up to go to veterinary school in Austria. I was already enrolled. And funny enough, I on the same time, I had a really strong draw that I wanted to get out of Austria, and I wanted to go somewhere else just for a year. So I became an au pair, a nanny in the US, and I fell totally in love with the US. And I'm so grateful because it actually distracted me from going to veterinary school, because I don't think I would have aligned in the same way with what I wanted to provide in terms of healing. And sure enough, I stayed in the US, I studied English, I did business, and this journey of searching and so many other chiropractors. I injured my back. I was exposed. I met it. It took several times, but I injured myself a few times. I met chiropractors on the way, but it wasn't until my horse got adjusted that I got it, because it wasn't so much of a physical experience, even though he had a lot of physical issues. But it was a very mentally broken horse from the racetrack, very difficult, kicking, biting, anything you could imagine. And he got his first adjustment, and suddenly he showed up for me as this partner in crime that was like, all right, let's work on this. I know you're going to take care of me. And just something shifted in his whole being. And that was it. I saw the light. I missed it many times before, but I think this, as many other people say, like chiropractic found them. It showed up in their life. And it so happened my mom ended up marrying an osteopath who had a deep passion for chiropractic as well. So it showed up on many, many aspects in my life. I just needed a little bit more of a slap in the face to take the bull by the horns and do it.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So speaking of which, like, can you outline for us what were the pivotal experiences or the highlights of when you were a chiropractic student and you were getting more and more familiar, but you were also starting to train yourself, you were practicing? Like, what does that path look like for a student who wants to become a chiropractor who specializes in working with animals, particularly horses? Maybe you can throw some resources out there, or maybe you can kind of just paint a picture. If you were giving yourself advice going into chiropractic school back then, knowing what you know now, how would you approach it? What are the ways that you would say, hey, you need to really emphasize a lot of extra effort and energy in these directions and in these particular things?
Okay. Yes. So I think the biggest thing, and it's interesting because I feel like I get a lot of questions of, a lot of teenagers actually. I have several people that follow along that want to make this decision. Shall it become, especially if they're interested in animal chiropractic, they're trying to decide, should it become a vet or should it become a chiropractor? And, very valid question, and they're like, well, I could go to vet school and then do chiropractic. But I think the biggest thing for me was, as painful as it was at first to go to human chiropractic school, it will never compare to the skill set that you will acquire, the passion, the love, the understanding, than as in vet school. And I see that now with our students, because when you go to chiropractic school, there's, you have to remember there's 3 to 4 years of this, because the philosophy and the passion and the explanation why you're doing it is what keeps you going, what keeps you alive, what keeps you from burning out. So, thinking of myself, it was a hard decision for me too, because I thought, well, I kind of would prefer to just work with animals, but there's just, surgery is not my thing. I'm not great with blood. Let me check out chiropractic school. And sure enough, I found I had such a great time actually learning how to adjust humans, the feedback you get, the experiences you have. It's just once you not master, but once you at least become somewhat acceptable in adjusting, uh, you are way ahead of the curve when you get into animal chiropractic. And sometimes you have to, I think the key thing is what kept me alive during chiropractic school, wanting to be an animal chiropractor. And I think even a human chiropractor is, I met Dr. Jacob Merrick in my second quarter. And it just so happened, divine universe, the people who were organizing his seminars graduated. and they approached me and my now husband if we could continue organizing his seminars. So I lived for those seminars. Like, they kept me, not just his, there was obviously amazing people like Arnaud Bernay and Sue Brown. And I mean, there's so many, Mimi Chatwood. There were so many people that influenced me and inspired me. And even though you're completely overwhelmed and you're studying and you are learning basic technique, the weekend seminars were my everything. And I think that this is the opportunity where you can really, really learn to adjust. And it's that token of inspiration where you can play. And especially if you're interested in animal chiropractic, just getting your hands on animals and touching them and being around them and prioritizing that for the weekend, it just fuels you for the whole quarter or semester. So that was a really, really big part for me. And then the other part is I just found some incredible mentors. I obviously latched on to Dr. J, and there was Dr. John Red Eagle Valenzuela and a couple of other chiropractors that I would just, follow and travel with. And I'm even though at times it was a bit stressful because I put a lot on myself, it was worth it because there's so many things I incorporate now that I learned, that I was exposed to, that I'll be forever grateful for that.
No, most definitely. Me too. And most of these teachers you're touching on are not teaching anymore, not actively like they were previously, at least. So this is where these types of conversations come into play, of trying to connect the dots for students of what are the subtleties, what are the subtle skills to develop some of the awarenesses, some of those like subtle listening abilities that are developed in those seminars that we had the privilege of having access to as students that don't really exist as abundantly as they used to. So I'm wondering if you can maybe tease out some of the details, just detailing some of the things that are maybe going through your mind, some of the ways that you're moving your body and interacting with horses or humans when you're in practice. Maybe just bring us into the life of an animal chiropractor, bring us into the different subtleties and the skills that you implement or that you're continually refining in the practice.
I think that that's just beautiful because you hit the nail, the hammer on the nail, no, the nail on the hammer. No, yes. I'm terrible actually with that kind of lingo, but I'm trying. I'm Austrian. So it's beautiful that you said that, because you're always refining, because I injured myself. And I know a lot of my colleagues have injured themselves because we so want things to shift and change, and we compromise our bodies. And part of it is sometimes it might be we see too many people, or we don't give ourselves enough nourishment, whether that's physically or emotionally, right? Like soul nourishment, and we can burn out. And we all have been through that. So in terms of and I think this is the big thing with the seminars, just to go back to that for a second, is that it was really beautiful, and I encourage people to like put themselves in charge and encourage some of those old teachers to come back out, because I feel like students sometimes can get a little bit complacent, and they're so overwhelmed with tests and boards and etc. that nobody wants to take charge in organizing it. And it's the biggest gift that you can give to yourself and to your classmates, to put something together with somebody who's extremely skilled. Because even though you might think you're an amazing adjuster, those old sages are so incredibly insightful, and they can teach you a thing or two about how to protect yourself, how to protect your bodies. And in practice has been my biggest teacher for sure. And one of the things I can think of, it's like it's all about being graceful, because sometimes especially once you're out in practice, you try to like muscle yourself through an adjustment, or especially with horses, when you're female, well, in general, we want to show off a little bit, I got this, I can adjust this. And sometimes animals, especially, it's more about getting them to trust. And actually with humans the same, right? With children, is when this person in front of you, the spirit in front of you, we're all connected, gets to trust you and relaxes into your hands, it just becomes this beautiful flow, right? You just let it come through you. And it's been I've been doing this for 15 years, and it's been literally in the last 6 months and lots of, injuries to myself before that I figured that out on a level where it's become just this wonderful flow. I could talk about it, I could think about it, but I actually never could put it into action in the same that in a way that I wanted to. But I'm finally seeing glimpses of it where I can move through a horse with grace and ease, and it's this just beautiful dance and communication. And even if it's let's say a nasty horse because it's in pain, or a dog that's just growling at you, and once you show him this respect and love, and you're in a good space. I think this is a really key point, is creating that space for you where you're nurtured, where you're not stressed out about finances. You got to see that many people, you got to do this and that. You have to be really strict about taking care of yourself so you can show up for the people and the animal in a 100% authentic way, and then suddenly things start to flow. And I know that's easier said than done, especially when you're graduating with hundreds and thousands of dollars of student loans. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've been experiencing lately.
Amazing. And just to keep it close to home, and for you to speak from your own experience, tell us about this program that you've brought forward. Tease out as many details about the program, and maybe what the student outcomes are, or you can even share some success stories of like seeing a student's trajectory just dramatically shift over the time spent during the program, and what they've been able to go out and feel like they have the confidence, or that they're equipped with to go and express for themselves as they move through horses, as you put it.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So this has definitely been our love child and a team effort, because we realized initially we just wanted to come up with a really beautiful space, kind of like a weekend seminar, right? Where you get inspired, where people in the field, animal chiropractors in the field, can come, be nourished, get their soul nourished, and earn their continuing education. I didn't realize it was interesting, because we actually started pretty short, or right around the pandemic. And it was beautiful because it became the safe space for animal chiropractors to show up, during a time when it was a real big challenge. And at the time, I didn't realize how important that was. And now it's become this thing where not only do people come there to learn about like business and history, get inspired, but it's just a weekend of, it's very small classes, so it's as much hands-on as they can get. And we've had incredible feedback, and I've also watched is, we pound it all out, like whether it's a certification, or we do human chiropractic school, then we go animal chiropractic school, and then right into practice. And sometimes we're not taught how to combine a human and an animal practice. And it's frankly, and I've experienced that too, you're adjusting humans all day, and then somebody calls you with horses, and you're so wiped out that sometimes you actually miss out on that opportunity, even though it's your dream. And so there's parts of where, how do you run that, and just having a group together that can discuss that. So there's a big business aspect, and then another big part is we teach a flow, just like with the human adjustment, right? You want to have a beautiful flow, and there's nuances, and once you have that, and it's your own, it's your own flow, right? What works for you? Like, how are you going to go through this adjustment, through this, whether it's like 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes that you spent with your patients? Like, how do you establish a smooth, beautiful experience for that being that's going to be with you? And that's the biggest part where, and once again, I got to give tons of credit to Dr. J, where he has this incredible flow. And I know it's made all the difference in the world for me. And it has totally separated me from other animal chiropractors, because horse owners, dog owners, cow owners, they recognize that. So we give students a, uh-oh, are we on? Okay, great. So I don't dilly-dally around for an hour, but can integrate that. And it's been beautifully to see, because hands down, some of them have taken it 3-4 times. They are exploding. They're bringing animal chiropractic out of the woodworks. You'll see they're following it, like they're being featured, and it is so beautiful for me to see, because I feel like, oh, maybe we can take a little bit of credit that we just were able to give them that extra little something they needed to just have that confidence, that, extra stride in their walk when they come home, and they're able to communicate, because that's another thing, right? Like, how do you communicate? So it's been an incredible journey. We're super excited because we were just asked to speak in Cancun. We get to teach in Austria and in France, and I just feel that it is needed all over the world, just like it is needed, to teach chiropractic student on human chiropractic all over the world as well.
Yeah, and just to keep bringing you into the fold of my world, I'm trying to bring forth a structure that supports students to go down the animal chiropractic pathway before they even get to chiropractic school, so that they will know the resources that are available to them when they arrive in chiropractic school, and they can go and invest their time, energy, money to go fly to Colorado if that's where it's being offered, what it is that that's in alignment with who they are and what they want to become and pursue. I think that will transform the consciousness of the chiropractic student, of the profession, to have this connection within the profession where the resources are really clearly identified, so that students know where to hook in and tap in. Because it could be so overwhelming when you get to school and there's so many directions and none of it's organized. So I appreciate you organizing your education so that students can have a framework of, these are the different checkpoints or milestones that I have to kind of move through to at least touch on the beginner stages of becoming an animal chiropractor, right? I'm curious, two-part question, what do you think about the potential in this of having students get interested in animal chiropractic when they're in high school or college? And then, how could that maybe dramatically change their learning curve or their trajectory, or the expressions that are coming out of the community of animal chiropractors that you are running with and growing with?
That's great. Yeah, so if I think about our little town in Durango, I'm involved. They asked me to do demos at 4-H, a lot of barrel racers, in the country. And it's really, really beautiful. I think we've had a handful already of, now that some of the 4-H's are becoming of age, they're asking me more and more to start traveling with me. And two just went off to chiropractic school. There's one that actually just got back to Durango who, heard about animal chiropractic. So I do feel like there's a huge potential. And once again, they always have this conversation of, oh, should I do vet, or, I want to work with horses because they're horse girls, of course. But I do think once they watch me work, and once I start talking to them and explain to them what it means to be a chiropractor versus a vet, even though we need a lot of vets in this area too, they realize it has incredible potential. And what I recognize too is that a lot of students that get to chiropractic because of animal chiropractic, they have a different outlook when they go to school. And I can't quite put my hand on them, but they're always they're the go-getters. If I think about a lot of so just to get clear, because you were just talking about the path of becoming an animal chiropractor. So in most states, you have to be either chiropractor or veterinarian. And then after you go to animal chiropractic school, and there's it always changes, but there's 4 or 5 schools right now that certify. That's the basic education. And then you can do could take a continuing education class with us. We don't do the basic certification. But what we do is we teach an intro class, and that's a class that we teach at the colleges. But what I realize is that when we get contacted from the different colleges, it's usually, one of the people who originally was looking, oh, should I do veterinary or chiropractic? And then they decided to go to chiropractic school. Those are the ones that then, organize seminars, have us there. So they're really the go-getters. They're really excited about, they know it's just, something you got to go through, and then you can really follow your dreams. So, and animal chiropractic is, and that sounds terrible to sell chiropractic, but it's a lot easier for people to understand animal chiropractic than human chiropractic, because they see the dog get adjusted, they see the horse get adjusted. Sure enough, pretty much all of my animal chiropractic clients at some point either end up at my office if they're local, or I'll find them a chiropractor in their area. It's just, you don't even have to explain chiropractic to them. They see their animal shift, they completely get it. There's something very, very magical about this. And it's a fun thing to see. People are excited about it. So there's definitely, animal chiropractic has been such a huge part of, I think, educating the world about what chiropractic is.
Absolutely. And if you were just trying to communicate it at maybe like an eighth grade level of like what is animal chiropractic? How does it look? What's the purpose and intention behind it? Why do people bring their animals to the chiropractor? Or how can chiropractors help animals, just so that we can keep building context?
Oh, that's so great. And that's, I think of my 4-H crew, right? When I go out there, I keep it very basic for them, because if you think about, what's important for them is for their horse to be happy and healthy. And so I'll ask them, I say, what does that mean to you? And for them, a lot of times they'll be like, well, I don't want them to be hurt. I don't want them to be lame. I want them to like have fun running. I want them to, like roll, eat, frolic in the pasture. I'm like, okay, great. That's fantastic. So, I'll ask them, I said, well, what is it that can interfere with that? And they're like, well, if they have a fall, or when they slip around a barrel, or, they fall on the ice. We have so much snow right now. And I'm like, so what happens? Does it take care of itself? And they're like, well, sometimes the vet comes. And I'm like, well, what would you think would happen if there's an area that's kind of gets sticky or stuck? And then you go in there and start moving that around. And they're like, oh, okay. So that makes sense. I'm like, well, what about, can you imagine if there's an area that's stuck? Does that mean, they're going to move a little less, or could there be does it then affect the surrounding areas? And I related to them when they fall. And sure enough, they will pick it up in a heartbeat. I don't have to say more. And they will completely and utterly understand what it means when there's an event that interferes with the horse functioning at 100. They're not able to function at 100%. Suddenly they can't take the turn as well. Suddenly they're not as happy. They get bitey, they get cinchy. And then somebody like me comes in, and we make sure we check the entire spine. And we also, I'm being a mixer, I'm also checking the extremities, and we free the system, and suddenly the horse can move. They're happier. And then a lot of times we painted the nervous system on the horse before. So this is a really beautiful way to get them involved at that level. I show them where the brain is, the spinal cord, how it goes through the vertebral column. And, even though they're at that age, they're so smart. And I will ask them, I said, okay, so here's the brain, there's the spinal column. Now, imagine an area is kind of torqued, kind of tweaked. Do you think that will affect how the nerves and how this communicates to the rest of the body? And sure enough, I'm like, what connects to that area? And a lot of them in 4-H learn about anatomy. So that's my world. That's how I educate them.
Awesome. And you said that there's basic certifications for animal chiropractic that are taught through 5 or 6 organizations, but you're teaching a more advanced continuing education class. Can you kind of just talk about the differences between like the basics that they learn and then what they'll learn when they come and study with you?
Yes, absolutely. So, the schools are great. I got to give them a ton of credit, because they just basically, they follow, just like chiropractic schools do, they have to follow a certain standard. So it's about the biggest thing with the basic education is that you learn when it's not safe to adjust. You learn basic setups, which, angles and etc., which that's really, really important. Sometimes, and not to criticize, but sometimes it can get a little bit robotic and stiff, just like in chiropractic school when you're doing setups. And but it's a means to an end, and that's why we decided not to partake in that, because there's already 5 schools doing it. They're doing a great job. They're setting up students to pass the AVCA or IVCA test if that's required in your state, and a lot of people do that. And for us, you have to be graduated from one of the schools to be able to take one of our classes. So you need to be what we call a certified animal chiropractor. And when you come to us, we just take it all to a next level. We create a flow. We take it a level deeper. Some people are so scared of, like, they'll have no problem thrusting on a human. They're so scared of thrusting on an animal or adjusting. And, we have, there was, I'll be very honest, but there was a time period where I wasn't sure I wanted to open it up to veterinarians, because it was initially a very uncomfortable situation in Colorado, where veterinarians that learned from us, chiropractors, to adjust animals, but then would show up at the meetings where we were trying to change the law and basically telling us that we should not be adjusting. But once again, they're going through the same school. When I went to Options to Animals, there was 20 chiropractors, 20 veterinarians. In an ideal situation, we would just have a 4-year animal chiropractic school. That would be a dream. So certified veterinarians come to our program as well. And, a lot of them need a lot of support in terms of what it means to adjust. They never actually were properly taught how to do that. And with chiropractic, it is about getting really comfortable about an animal, because, there's a lot of chiropractors that are very timid about horses, and they don't have a lot of experience with horses. So we're trying to just, whatever the student needs, we are small enough that we can work on a very individual level. And as I said, there was some of them, it might be listening to this at some point, but we have several students that have come back for the 4th time because they are just determined. Like for me, I always had a hard time getting anterior dorsals. And it wasn't until I had graduated, I took one more seminar, and it wasn't until my very last seminar I finally got it. And I feel some of the students are like that. They come and they're like, I just can't get that hock stifle adjustment. And, they do whatever it takes to get it to that point, and we will make sure to do that with them. And once again, it's that soul nurture, right? You just want to be around colleagues that are passionate about this, especially in a time that, we previously had. And that's basically kind of our vision and goal.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect segue. The vision. Is there a greater vision? You said a 4-year animal chiropractic program. Like, if you were painting a picture of what that could look like, just so that we could create maybe a parallel curriculum alongside students that are going to chiropractic school, if they were to structure, say, 4 years of their life to dedicate themselves with as much time and effort and energy as they can to the work that they want to go and do, which is what you're doing. Can you kind of maybe paint that picture creatively to the types of things that maybe they need to go and make sure that they're really good at dancing, or maybe they need to go and make sure that they can play with a bowling ball? I'm just curious, like, what are some of the things that mimic working with a horse or a dog, aside from actually just doing it? Maybe actually just doing it is becoming a rider of horses, or a trainer of dogs. I guess that might be a good start. What do you think?
Yes. So this is, we touch upon a lot of that. And this is really interesting. Like, imagining having to run, I barely can handle right now the continuing education school that we have. Like, it's so much more work than I expected. But it is really fun. I cannot imagine having to deal with the 4-year school. I think that'd be really intense, but it'd be incredible, because when I think about our vision, what we would like to offer, one of the things that I always notice is that sometimes, and it's vets and chiropractors, but we just lack basic animal handling skills. And I felt so fortunate in my life because one of my biggest heroes in natural horsemanship, you could call it, well, he would be very offended if I would call it that, but Mark Rashid, he's incredible. He does Aikido, and he just has a way of communicating with the horse. I wanted to meet him all my life. I knew of him in Austria. And funny enough, I was adjusting this lady's horses and it was very shortly after chiropractic school. And I had this crazy idea to adopt a couple of Mustangs, and I have actually never started a horse in my life. And I realized I was way in over my head, but I wanted to learn. And she was a trainer, and I asked her, I said, I need some help with those horses. And she said, well, my husband is a really amazing trainer. You might want to come to his clinic. And I was like, oh, who's your husband? Well, sure enough, it's Mark Rashid. So Mark Rashid is a legend. He's written lots of books. And I got to go to his clinic, and we became friends, and I started adjusting his horses. But hands down, the skills he's taught me with my horses and how to handle horses just sets me up for a successful adjustment, because there's a certain communication we have. And, I don't ever get violent with horses, even if they're naughty, but I have very clear boundaries, because, when they're hurt, and especially when you have an owner, because, we say that a lot too. Sometimes you just need to tell the owner to leave because they have a certain energy that doesn't set you up for success to have a beautiful chiropractic adjustment. So horse handling, right? Like, we could do a whole weekend on just teaching veterinarians and chiropractors how to handle horses. Riding, I got to give so much credit to Dr. Ryan Marchman, who's one of our instructors. He just went for it and started riding. And oh my gosh, he's incredible. And I think, like, every time I see him, he's just, his adjustments is just incredible, because you start understanding the horse. And my husband, he's so funny. He's from Nebraska. He grew up on a cow ranch. And, when he showed up the first time in flip-flops to adjust a horse, like, that was not really appreciated by the owner. So there's a certain horse etiquette, right? Like, you're going to be judged. There's a certain way horse owners are, and they're going to immediately know if you know horses or not. And they're going to be very reluctant to call you back if you show up in flip-flops. So, like, there's things like that. So getting yourself into, whatever your passion is. So figure out, like, is it horses, is it dogs? Get really involved, with some of the, like, whether it's agility dogs or certain organizations. Really learn what they're looking for, because when you're able to speak the language, when you know how to handle an animal, not just to show them what you're doing, but the animal will feel it. So that's huge. And then another part that I learned from myself is, you better get to the gym. You really, and Dr. J and I, we joke around about it, because it's like, you'd think it's a very physical job, but that doesn't get you fit. You've got to get strong in your core. Like, that was I have a personal trainer. I go 2 to 3 times a week. It's made such a difference for me. I'm in my 50s, and I want to be able to do horses until I'm, I don't know, 80. So making sure that your body is strong and balanced and you've got a good core is going to be key for that.
No, I really appreciate you touching on those details. Teasing out the details is so key, because students, I imagine students are really asking these questions, and they don't have anybody they don't know who to ask these questions to. Like you said, the go-getters, I'm trying to really serve them because they're curious and they're interested. And if this can reach them, I've done them a service, and that's kind of the goal here. And I really appreciate you just kind of touching on the details in somewhat of a superficial way, just inviting them to go down these paths. You're not giving any answers, and you're more just asking more questions. So I'm just curious if you could kind of maybe look at the past, the present, and the future of animal chiropractic, just to stay on sort of topic here. Where has it been? Where has it gotten to now? And how do you see it sort of progressing and growing in the future?
That's totally my world, actually. I love, one of the things that I teach is animal chiropractic history. and I'm also, very interested politically what's going on in the US, because at this point there is 4 states where animals have direct access to animal chiropractors, which is mortifying to me. But there's a huge shift happening in a lot of states, and it's really exciting for me to see. And what people don't realize is they always think like animal chiropractic started with Sharon Willoughby, and she needs to be accredited for so many things. She's incredible. But once I started digging, I went to Palma Chiropractic College and just dug into their archives, and it was Candyland. And this is probably, I could do a whole session on it, but it was 1899 was the first mention of animal chiropractic by D.D. Palma. And the story of animal chiropractic, is pretty incredible. And when BJ Palma got into his upper cervical mode and he came out with the adjustment specific, everything went to upper cervical in animals. And these are all things we are not, discussing and talking about. So I think animal chiropractic is in its baby shoes, because we are being taught it's not, when you go to animal chiropractic school, you're not really taught a technique. You're just taught a couple of adjustments, which is just a mixture of all kinds of things. And I think it's the time that we need to develop it more, really look into upper cervical. There's a great group like in Finland, they're doing BGI on animals. And so there's so many different things that are coming out now, and people getting a little bit more excited about exploring. So, and I'm actually quite proud. I do have to give a shout out to my husband. He's an upper cervical chiropractor. He got certified by the Upper Cervical Niche Society, and he started because we're both certified animal chiropractors, but he really started looking into the equine upper cervical spine, and he's like, some of those things we're being taught, they aren't right. We need to shift that. And he started doing presentations, and he's really rocking our world. So there's an incredible future in terms of there's so much more that can be developed. In terms of political, if you look at what happened during the time of BG Palma and what they had to deal with the American Medical Association, and not just did they get hammered when it came to human chiropractic, but when they found out that we were adjusting animals, they thought that, well, it's fine to adjust humans, but how dare we touch an animal? I mean, we were just like, the names they were calling us. And I have to snicker, because I look at us sometimes and I'm like, there are some states that are pretty ugly to their animal chiropractors. And I'm really proud, because a lot of animal chiropractors are standing up and they're like, wait a minute, we taught you how to adjust animals and now you're going to take it from us. So we're growing by numbers since Colorado has direct access to animal chiropractors. Animals have direct access. It's incredible how many chiropractors have moved here to practice. So it's so exciting. We're growing in numbers. That it's exploding in terms of there's such a need for it. I think most animal chiropractors are getting actually quite burned out. I just texted with one of our students, who I don't even dare to call her a student. She's like an equal, right? So she's like, oh my gosh, I'm adjusting all these pigs, and it's like Texas cows. It's never ending. It is so incredible. The potential it's just, it doesn't take much to promote an animal chiropractic clinic. You go to a city, you hang up your shingle, and you just say dog chiropractic, you'll be slammed. I mean, the future is bright and beautiful. We just have to modify a couple of things in the law, but I have full faith that that is going to work out just beautifully.
Do you have any numbers as far as how big the community is of animal chiropractors these days? And I'm just curious where it's at, and like just kind of projecting out, projecting out like what the potential is if we had, say, a whole contingency of 100 students worldwide that were really wanting to contribute politically, maybe just put forth effort and energy. What would you maybe guide them to do or get involved with? How would you encourage them to make a difference, even as a student, maybe not even necessarily waiting till they graduate?
That's great. In terms of numbers of animal chiropractors, so for example, and that is, you could, it's a tricky one because not a lot of them are recorded, but I'm actually, first I was a little worried because Colorado started recording us and we went probably from 50, we're probably close to 80 now in the state that are registered, maybe even more. I honestly haven't looked at it this year, but that's something we can easily pull up and check out. So, whole state of Colorado, even if it's 100, it's very little, but it's there. And not to forget, the veterinarians that are certified are not registered under the chiropractic register. Now, what really got me excited is there's two organizations, the AVCA and the IVCA. I'm not sure if you're familiar. Those are kind of the two big governing bodies, and they can bicker a little bit, but I'm both AVCA and IVCA certified. And there's it's this love-hate sometimes with political organizations, but I do think that bring us together, and I appreciate them doing the work. And I do think it's good to have some sort of testing standard to make us legit, I guess is the way to say. And I got AVCA certified last year, and it was exciting because there was a waiting list to get certified. And, they only take 100 because they have, it's very intimate still. They still have, you have to actually hands-on show on the horse and the dog, listings. And it was one of the toughest tests I've taken. It was scary, and I've been in the field for 15 years. So, bad habits sneak in. So having to relearn all the angles. But I thought that was really exciting. The Parker Animal Program, I think they had like 75 people that graduated that year, and not everybody could come to the testing. And, sorry that they couldn't, but how exciting is this? And I would say at least once a week, I get an inquiry, whether it's Messenger, et cetera, about, changing laws or getting involved. And I love it because the students sometimes are the most passionate. And then they go out and practice and they're like, oh my gosh, there's so many things to deal with. But, I try to connect people. And what I find really beautiful right now is, if a lot of times when you first graduate, that's a huge thing to take on. Making a political change like that, it probably took us like a total of 3 years, but it was divine timing. Dr. Page Mott was like huge. She went across the hall. She found a rep that could like shift the law. So that was really, she had been around. Like, you have to have the experience and the lingo to be able to communicate with the veterinarians. So it's great if you want to get involved after, right after school, but definitely find a great team that has the experience and is able to communicate on a level where, you're not going to be looked down upon, I would say. But yeah, I encourage anybody and everybody to do that.
Awesome. I appreciate you just rocking with me here. I'm curious if you have if you have any other sort of things that are coming up to the top of your head that you would love to share with students that you're really just trying to help build context, build the pathway out, invite them to come play, invite them to go to specific resources that they can learn more, or specific anything, channels, books, websites, podcasts, anything that comes to mind that you can continue to share with students?
Yes, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is, in terms of, let's say you're somebody who's thinking about becoming a chiropractor, I always encourage, like, just spend some time with a really rocking animal chiropractor that's been, in the field for a few years. There's so many that are just out of this world. And, if in your area you're looking for one, I'm more than happy to like refer you to one. Because just, spending a whole day and seeing how animals can shift and the love and the fun that they're enjoying, that's a great start. Um, if a lot of people that are interested in animal chiropractic, there's a lot of other things you can, until you get to chiropractic school. I actually was an equine sports massage therapist before coming to animal chiropractic. And I just took a bunch of like fun classes, just to expose yourself to the anatomy and start digging deeper. Because once again, like after you graduate, it's not that many months and it's a lot of information. So, there's just some great classes, even if it's like a silly massage class, you're going to just really be exposed to the anatomy and just to understand how the horse's body or the dog's body functions. In terms of, there's so many great Facebook groups now as well. There's Making Strides for Animals, and there's animal chiropractors left and right that are becoming really popular on Instagram. Don't ever hesitate to reach out and ask questions. And, I would say if you are already in school, to stay inspired, you make sure, like, just organize. Even I started, when I started Life West, they didn't have an animal club because they were so worried about being sued, right? And I just was like that nagging squeaky wheel. And finally they gave in and let me start the Animal Chiropractic Club at Life West. And because I knew there was one before. So, most of the schools now have animal chiropractic clubs, and it's a great crew. And I see more and more they're going to barns, they're just doing palpation. They invite usually a doctor to speak. Like I usually speak at least 2-3 times to different clubs. Like next week I'm going to be talking to Palma Animal Chiropractic Club, and and organize some fun seminars. Like don't worry about too many things. Just get a chiropractor in there that's been out in the field that can show you some basic stuff you can practice. Just motion palpation, whatever it is. There's so many people with their own dogs. Those are all things you can do. And then last but not least, I think one of the biggest things for me is if you're practicing, or what I get asked a lot, students right before they graduate, they suddenly start getting really worried about the law. And I get a lot of messages about that. They're like, oh my gosh, it's like not legal and direct supervision. And talk to us. I used to practice in California. And there's a very graceful way how you can just have a beautiful practice. And it's about building relationship. It's about building relationship with the veterinarian, very most likely. And there's so many highly successful animal chiropractors. You just got to be a little creative for a while, and you can't be fearful and scared. You're going to be okay. So like, don't hold yourself back from practicing what you love just because in your head you think you're going to go to jail or somebody's going to turn you in. And, we've all gotten cease and desists. And it's one of those things where you live and you learn. And you ask your mentors and your friends that are out there that have been in the field for a long time what to do with it. And then the last group I'm going to approach is the animal chiropractor, or the chiropractors that are graduated. They're in practice now, and they want to take everything to the next level. I do have to do a shameless plug. Definitely come to us and see us and have fun. But more importantly is how are you going to prevent like burnout, right? You're working, you're paying off bills, you're trying to find the balance, you're doing humans and you're doing animals. And really, how do you create a balance with this? And that is something that I struggled with for a long, long time. And you sometimes just have to take the leap. And this is what I just stopped seeing people 2 days a week. And I just went for it. And it was a little scary at first because you're like, do I have enough animals? I can do it. But sometimes you just got to take the leap and do it. I just took the leap where now I'm fully animals but I have another doctor. My husband is at the office, and then we have another doctor that's at our office as well. And you just got to do it. And it's like, you've got to follow your heart, what brings you joy, what you love, because that's going to nourish your soul. And that's how you can serve best.